Before anything else, welcome to this channel of intense real-life stories about betrayal, respect, and people who one day decide they will not accept less than they deserve. If you like slow, detailed stories told by a calm robotic voice, get comfortable, turn up the volume, stay with me until the end. And if this story makes you think of something you've lived or could live, remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. My name is Daniel Cruz. I'm in my late 30s, and this is how one joke my wife made at brunch ended our 5-year marriage in about 5 minutes, and how that moment became the start of a much better life. I pulled into the parking lot of a trendy cafe in a busy part of the city at around 11:20 on a Sunday morning, exhausted after a 6-hour early shift that had started before sunrise. My shoulders ached, my back was tight, and all I could really think about was my bed and the leftover takeout waiting in my fridge. Instead, I was walking into a brunch I didn't want to attend because my wife had sent me 3 reminder messages. One a little after 8, another around 9:30, and the last one close to 11 with 3 question marks, the digital version of her tapping her foot. I had completely forgotten. Honestly, I'd been working nonstop without checking my phone, and when I finally finished, all I wanted was sleep, but I went anyway, because that's what you do, right? You show up. You make the effort. I stopped by home first, took a fast shower, put on a clean shirt and some jeans, then drove from our quiet suburb into the center of the city. I had to park about 4 blocks away because that's just how parking is in a big city on a Sunday, and the walk gave me a few minutes to mentally prepare for the performance I knew I was about to give. Me, the husband who never quite fit in with her circle, the guy who worked with his hands while they worked in marketing, PR, and whatever else let them justify expensive brunches every weekend. I could hear their laughter from half a block away, sharp and exaggerated, the kind of laughter people use as background noise, and I probably should have turned around right then and gone home, but I didn't. The patio was packed with the usual weekend crowd, sparkling drinks everywhere, overpriced avocado toast and fancy eggs. The sun hitting a bunch of people who clearly had nowhere more important to be. Young couples taking pictures of their food, groups of women in designer sunglasses, the whole look at us scene in full swing. My wife, whose name is Laura, was already seated at a corner table with 4 of her friends that I recognized from other dinners and events over the years. She didn't stand when she saw me, didn't smile or wave me over warmly. She just lifted her hand a little and pointed at the lonely chair added at the very end of the table, like I was late to her meeting, which I guess I was, at least by her standards. I sat in that obviously extra chair, and the conversation barely dipped. They were deep into planning a girls' trip to an expensive lakeside town, talking about spa reservations, boutique hotels with infinity pools, maybe renting a private villa, the kind of trip that costs more than I make in a month. I caught the waitress's eye and ordered a simple black coffee. Nothing more. No one at the table asked how my morning had been. No one asked why I looked tired. The conversation just kept swirling around me as if I were a coat hanging on the back of the chair. I checked my phone, saw nothing urgent from work, put it away, and tried to tune in. They were comparing private cabins, bottle service, outfits, all that. Laura was in full performance mode, hands moving, mimosa sloshing a little in her glass as she talked. One of the women, a blonde named Carla who I think worked in property management or real estate, finally acknowledged me with a polite, "So, how's work?" But before I could answer, Laura cut in without even looking at me and said, "He's always working. I basically live like a single woman anyway." All 4 of them laughed like she'd said something clever instead of cutting, like it was hilarious that I was breaking my back to keep our finances afloat. Another friend, a woman whose name I never bothered to remember, shook her head and said, "Girl, I'd never put up with that practiced tone of fake concern." A third one added, seriously, "Life's too short," raising her drink. I took a sip of my coffee when it arrived and stayed quiet. This was normal. I'd gotten used to being the punchline at these gatherings, the husband who worked too hard, but not in the right glamorous way, the one who didn't quite belong in their world of endless brunches and designer bags. I covered about 70% of our bills, paid the mortgage most months, but I guess that wasn't interesting enough for brunch conversation. They drifted to other topics. Shopping trips, gossip about people I didn't know, complaints about their own boyfriends or husbands who forgot anniversaries or didn't want to go out anymore. The rounds of mimosas kept coming. Laura was already on her 3rd by the time the food started arriving, plates full of eggs, avocado, artisanal bread. I hadn't ordered anything to eat. The waitress looked at me as if waiting, and I just shook my head. I wasn't hungry. I just wanted this to end so I could go home and maybe sleep a few hours before Monday came crashing in. Laura's voice grew louder and more animated with each drink. She was clearly performing now, using her friends as an audience. And that was when she said it. She leaned back in her chair, lifted her glass like she was about to make a toast, and projected her voice so clearly that not only our table, but probably the next 3 could hear her. Honestly, I give this marriage another half a year at best, she said. The laughter was instant and loud. Her 4 friends burst out laughing like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard, the kind of laughter that makes nearby tables turn their heads. She wasn't done. She was enjoying this. I mean, let's be real, she added, in a tone like she was explaining a business deal that wasn't working out. We're on completely different paths now. Cold, detached, like she was talking about a product, not a person. More laughter. More nodding and fake sympathy. You've been patient long enough, one of them said, shaking her head like Laura was some kind of saint. Way more patient than I would have been, another added, raising her drink as if she was toasting Laura's suffering. You deserve better, babe, the third chimed in. I set my coffee cup down carefully. My hands were steady, even though my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I looked slowly around the table. All 5 women were laughing. Laura was in the center of it, basking in the attention, gesturing dramatically. None of them looked at me. I wasn't a person to them in that moment. I was a concept, a caricature. The disappointing husband they all expected her to replace when she traded up. Something clicked in my head. It wasn't really shock, exactly, or even anger. It felt more like a door opening or maybe closing for good. Everything suddenly became very clear. This wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. It wasn't even the first time she'd said it to these exact people. The way they reacted, the way they agreed so quickly and confidently, told me this was a running joke they all knew well. I'd been the punchline for a while. I just hadn't been invited to the show before. How many brunches, dinners, and girls' nights had she spent tearing me down like this? How many stories had she gotten mileage from portraying me as the man who wasn't enough, who was holding her back, the one she planned to ditch for something better? Their laughter finally started to die down. They were catching their breath, sipping their drinks, and that was when I spoke, calmly, like I was making a neutral comment about the weather. Half a year, I repeated. The table went quiet, completely silent. Laura's smile faltered. Her hand froze with the mimosa halfway to her mouth. You're generous, I said in the same level tone. I give it 5 minutes. For a couple of seconds, nobody moved. They thought I was joking, playing along. Then I leaned down and slid my wedding ring off my finger. The metal slipped easily over my knuckle. I'd lost some weight lately from stress and extra hours, paying for a lifestyle she seemed to forget I was funding. I placed the ring right in the middle of the table, between 2 half-empty glasses of orange and champagne. The small clink of metal on wood sounded louder than it should have in that sudden vacuum of sound. Then I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. Still, no one spoke. Around us, I could hear everything else. Conversations at other tables, cutlery on plates, someone's phone ringing, the traffic outside, birds in the trees. But at our table, it was like someone had hit mute. I looked each of her friends in the eye one by one. Every single one of them dropped their gaze, suddenly fascinated by their plates, their drinks, anything but my face. Then I looked at Laura. Her face had gone pale, then flushed in blotches. Enjoy your brunch, I said. What? Her voice came out strangled. Wait, Daniel, I was just joking. She reached across the table, almost knocking over a water glass, trying to grab my arm. I stepped back out of reach. It was just girl talk. Don't be so dramatic, she added, with a note of panic under the irritation. I glanced at her friends one last time. All of them were staring at their food now, their expensive dishes suddenly so fascinating. 30 seconds earlier they'd been loud and confident. Now they looked like kids caught cheating on a test. Half a year is generous, I said in that calm voice that didn't even feel like it belonged to me. 5 minutes is honest. The ring is off. Keep it or sell it. I'm done. I turned and walked through the restaurant. I didn't storm off, didn't slam anything, didn't rush. I just walked at a normal pace, weaving between tables, passing the host stand, stepping out through the front door onto the sidewalk. The midday sun hit me like a wall. I put on my sunglasses and started walking the 4 blocks back to where I'd parked. Not running, not hurrying, just moving like I had somewhere to be and was a little late, like it was any other Sunday. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door open and her voice calling my name, louder and more desperate the second time. But I didn't turn around. I kept walking. After half a block, I couldn't hear her anymore. Either she'd given up or the noise of the traffic drowned her out. It didn't really matter which. My old truck was exactly where I'd left it on the side street. I climbed in, closed the door, and sat there for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel. That was when the shaking started. My hands trembled. The adrenaline I'd been holding back finally hit all at once. My chest felt tight. My heart was racing. My breathing went shallow. I forced myself to breathe in slowly through my nose, out through my mouth, something I'd learned once in a stress management training at work. After a minute or two, it helped a little. Then my phone started vibrating in my pocket. Her name on the screen. I declined the call and stared at the phone. I couldn't stay parked there. She knew my truck, she could come looking. I started the engine and drove off, not toward home. I didn't want to go there. I ended up in the parking lot of a big supermarket a couple of miles away. I parked far from the entrance, away from other cars, turned off the engine, and just sat. The phone kept buzzing, message after message. I checked the screen. 8 texts already, all from her. Where did you go? Come back right now. You're being ridiculous. You're embarrassing me. Please, can we talk? Answer me. Then the calls started again. I let the first one ring out to voicemail. Immediately another came. Then another. A new text popped up. Please. Can we talk? That please was different, short, no attitude, no exclamation marks. I pictured her with shaking hands, mascara running, her friends gone, leaving her with the bill and the mess she'd made. I answered with one line. There's nothing left to talk about. I hit send. The phone rang instantly, like it had been waiting for any response. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Where are you? She demanded, voice thick with tears, traffic sounds in the background. She was probably still near the cafe. You can't be serious right now. Everyone is staring at me, she said. That's not my problem anymore. I answered, keeping my voice flat. You're throwing our marriage away over a joke. She sobbed. Over one stupid comment. You didn't ruin it today, I said quietly. You just made it official. Where are you? She repeated, more desperate, like if she could just get in front of me she could fix it. Just come back. We can talk through this. Where I am doesn't matter, I told her. I'll stop by the house tomorrow to pick up my things. What? No, you can't just. I hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment, then blocked her number. The screen flashed. This contact has been blocked. I dropped the phone on the passenger seat and leaned my head back. I sat in that parking lot for another 10 minutes, breathing, trying to process what I'd just done. My marriage was over. 5 years done in about 5 minutes, just like I'd said. Eventually I started the truck again and drove, not home, because I couldn't face that house with all her stuff everywhere. The pictures on the walls, the life she'd secretly been planning to blow up. Instead, I went to my friend's apartment in another neighborhood. His name is Leo. We'd known each other since high school, played basketball together, stayed close as adults. He's one of those solid guys who doesn't talk too much but always shows up when you need him. I knocked on his door around 1 in the afternoon. I could hear the TV inside football. Sunday, of course. He opened the door in a team jersey holding a beer. He took one look at my face, stepped aside, and said, What happened? You need a couch for a few days? Yeah, I said. If you've got one. He pointed toward the fridge. Grab a beer. We went back to the living room. He muted the TV but left the game on. I dropped onto his old, comfortable couch that smelled like pizza and beer, the usual bachelor mix. His place was small but clean, just enough for one person. We watched the game in silence for a while. Leo knew when to push and when to let things breathe. This was definitely a let it breathe situation. Around 6, during a commercial, he pulled out his phone and ordered pizza, 2 big ones loaded with meat from the place around the corner. They showed up during the third quarter. We ate in easy silence. Finally, during halftime, he muted the TV again, looked over at me and said, "You want to talk about it?" I gave him the condensed version. The brunch, her half-a-year joke, the laughter, the ring on the table, me walking out. Leo sat there for a moment, took a long drink of his beer, and set it down. "She said that in public?" he asked. "With people around? In the middle of a restaurant?" I nodded. Her friends were there. They all heard it. They thought it was hilarious. Leo shook his head slowly. "You did the right thing, man." That night, I made the mistake of checking my phone before trying to sleep. 30+ missed calls. More than 50 texts, all from her, or from her using her friends' phones after I blocked her. I could tell which number was which friend from the tone. Some messages angry, some pleading, some trying to sound logical. One from Carla said, "She was just venting. Everyone vents. You're being unreasonable." I didn't answer any of them. I just read each one and felt more certain I'd made the right choice. This wasn't love. It wasn't even basic respect. It was someone panicking because her plan had blown up in her face. I turned my phone off completely, watched the screen go black, pulled a blanket over myself on Leo's couch, and stared at the ceiling. I tried to sleep, but my mind kept replaying that moment. Her voice saying she gave our marriage half a year, the laughter, the way none of them looked at me. I must have drifted off at some point, because I woke up to daylight coming through the windows and my phone buzzing in my hand. I turned it back on half awake without thinking. It was a little before 7 in the morning. A text from an unknown number flashed on the screen. "Hi, this is Elena from yesterday. Can we talk? It's important." Elena. I had to think for a second, then remembered the quiet one at the brunch, the woman at the far end of the table who barely said a word, who just listened while the others talked, laughed, and drank. "Dude," I said, showing the message to Leo as he walked out of his room. He read it and shrugged. "Might be worth hearing what she has to say. Could be useful." I replied, "About what?" Instead of another text, my phone rang. "Can you meet me at 8 at the coffee shop on Central Avenue?" she asked as soon as I picked up. I agreed. I cleaned up as best I could in Leo's bathroom, borrowed a clean shirt, then drove to the cafe and got there 10 minutes early. I ordered a plain coffee and sat in a corner. Elena walked in right on time, looking different from the polished version I'd seen the day before. She had her hair pulled back, no makeup, jeans, and a sweatshirt. She looked like she hadn't slept much either. She sat across from me without ordering anything, laced her fingers together on the table, and looked me straight in the eye. "I couldn't sleep last night," she said, "because of what happened. You need to know something. Actually, a few things." I waited, sipping my coffee. "Yesterday wasn't the first time she said something like that about you," Elena said quietly. "She's been talking about divorce for months. Since spring at least, maybe longer. She told all of us. She's been consulting a lawyer. She laid out the whole plan." My stomach went cold. "What plan?" I asked. Elena's hands were clenched together. "Her strategy was to get you to be the one who actually walked away," she explained. "She said that would help her in court. If you left first, she could claim abandonment, paint you as the bad guy. She's been rehearsing that story with us for weeks." Elena pulled out her phone, scrolling. "She's been telling us all kinds of things about you," she went on. "That you're controlling, that you're stingy with money, that you're emotionally cold. But my husband knows people who know you from work, from mutual contacts, that kind of thing," and nothing she was saying matched what he'd heard. "So last night, after what happened, I asked him straight out. He said you're known as a reliable guy, hardworking, steady. Not at all like she'd been describing." She turned her phone so I could see. "When you left that ring on the table and just walked out, something clicked for me," she said. "That took real courage, and she didn't see it coming. She told us you'd never actually leave, that you'd just keep putting up with things, that you were predictable." On the screen I saw screenshots of a group chat. I recognized Laura's number. I started reading messages about exit strategy, about which lawyer friend to use, about dividing assets, about playing the long game. One message made my jaw clench. "He's so predictable. He'll probably just take it and won't even fight." By the time he realizes what's going on, it'll be too late. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Elena forwarded the screenshots to my number as we spoke. My phone buzzed over and over as each one came through. My husband went through something almost identical, she said. His ex tried the same kind of manipulation. It almost destroyed him financially and emotionally. When I saw this starting to repeat, I felt sick. You deserve to know what you were really dealing with. 7 screenshots in total. She's going to try to paint you as the villain, Elena warned. She'll say you abandoned her, that you were cruel, that you walked out with no warning. Honestly, she probably started spinning it that way last night. I saw the messages in the chat after I got home. She was already rewriting the story to make herself the victim. I nodded slowly as I processed it. Would you be willing to testify if it comes to that? I asked. If this goes to court? Yes, she said without hesitating. What she's doing is wrong. It's manipulative and calculated, and I don't want any part of it. I already left the group chat last night. I frowned. Won't that blow up your friendship with her? With all of them? Elena gave a small, sad smile. If that's the kind of friend she is, I'm better off without her, she said. She gave me her direct number, told me to call if I needed anything information, a statement, whatever. Then she went home to her family, and I stayed in that cafe a while longer, looking at my phone, at the digital proof of how carefully Laura had been planning to walk away with the upper hand. Financially, socially, emotionally. It hadn't been a random joke at brunch. It was one more calculated step in a long, quiet game. By the afternoon, I was sitting in a divorce lawyer's office in an upscale part of town. Leo had recommended her. She was an older woman named Ms. Herrera, sharp and direct. She scrolled through the screenshots on my phone with a neutral expression. You left the relationship publicly and decisively, she said. She's been planning this for months. This is very strong evidence for you. She explained her strategy. File first, immediately. Don't wait for Laura to make the first move. Ask to separate assets, using the screenshots to show premeditated manipulation. Go for a no-fault divorce, but with enough evidence to protect me from false accusations. She wanted you to look like the bad guy, Ms. Herrera said. Instead, this shows a man who finally had enough. Big difference. The process would take around 4 to 6 months. Ms. Herrera would handle all communication. My job was to block all contact and let her deal with Laura and her lawyer. I walked out feeling strange, lighter somehow, or maybe just numb. That same afternoon, I opened a separate bank account, changed my direct deposit, and rented a small P.O. box for mail. By Tuesday morning, Laura had been served with divorce papers. On Tuesday afternoon, Leo's phone started ringing. It was Laura trying to reach me through him. Please just tell him to talk to me, she begged over speaker. Leo looked at me. I shook my head. He doesn't have anything to say to you, Leo told her and hung up. On Wednesday evening, I went to the house to collect my things. Ms. Herrera had arranged everything. I brought Leo and requested a police escort just in case. Laura's car was in the driveway. She opened the door before I could knock. She looked wrecked, no makeup, comfy pants, messy bun. Nothing like the polished woman at brunch. Can we please just, she started, but the officer stepped in. Ma'am, he's here to collect his belongings, he said calmly. Please let him do so. Took about 40 minutes. I grabbed clothes, my laptop, personal items, my tools from the garage. Leo helped me load everything into his truck. Laura stood in the doorway the whole time, crying. When I walked past her for the last time, she grabbed my arm. I didn't mean any of it, she sobbed. I was just showing off. I looked her straight in the eyes. Exactly, I said. You showed them who you really are. Then I got in the truck and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, Elena texted me an update. The brunch group had basically fallen apart. After she told the others about the screenshots and the planning, 3 of the 4 distanced themselves from Laura. Only one stayed loyal. Laura had tried to organize a wine night. Only that one friend showed up. I didn't feel happy about it, just empty. Through Leo's network, more details trickled in. Laura had moved back in with her parents. She'd lost her job recently, something she'd never told me. That explained why she'd been so focused on securing the house and assets. She wanted everything lined up before anyone realized she wasn't working anymore. Her credit card debt was worse than I'd known. She'd been hiding a lot. She was going to drop all of that on you in court, Leo said. Elena's evidence killed that strategy. A month after the brunch, I moved out of Leo's place into a small studio apartment across town, tiny but clean. Affordable. About 20 minutes from work. I picked up extra shifts and saved hard. My life became simple: work, gym, home, sleep. Quiet, predictable. The strange thing was the peace. I hadn't realized how exhausting my marriage had been until it ended. Somehow Laura found my new number, probably through work. One single text came through. "I'm sorry. Can we please talk?" I blocked the number immediately. A week later, she showed up in the parking lot at my job. I saw her car, called Ms. Herrera before walking to my truck. And that evening my lawyer sent a cease and desist letter. After that, there were no more attempts to contact me directly. About 3 months in, Ms. Herrera called with an update. "She's trying to claim you abandoned her financially," she said. "But the records show you paid most of the bills, and she hid her job loss. The judge isn't impressed." The settlement came together fast after that. I kept my truck, my personal belongings, my savings. She kept the house, though there was barely any equity in it, and took full responsibility for the mortgage. She also took all the credit card debt in her name. No alimony. Clean break. We signed in separate rooms at the courthouse. I never saw her that day. For months after that Sunday brunch, my supervisor pulled me aside at work. "We're creating a new team lead position," he said. "Better schedule. Salary instead of hourly. You interested?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. The promotion became official 2 weeks later. The first thing I did was move into a better place. A small one-bedroom apartment in a nicer neighborhood, with a tiny patio. It was the first place that actually felt like mine. One Saturday morning, I was buying groceries at an upscale market when I ran into a coworker I'd seen around but never really talked to. Her name is Anna. She was in the produce section with a friend, laughing about the price of avocados. She recognized me. "Hey, you're in distribution, right?" she said. We chatted, easy and casual. She was funny, had a relaxed smile, and didn't ask invasive questions. Her friend clearly made an excuse to wander off, giving us space. Anna looked at me and said, "This is kind of direct, but do you want to grab a coffee after we pay? There's a place next door." I was surprised, but I said, "Yeah, sure, that sounds good." We sat in the cafe for an hour talking about work, books, movies, nothing heavy. She didn't ask about my divorce, even though I knew everyone at work had heard something. I didn't volunteer details. The conversation just flowed. When we left, she said, "This was nice. Want to do it again sometime? Maybe dinner?" "Definitely," I said. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more. Dinners, movies, hikes on weekends. Being with Anna felt easy, no games. No drama, just honesty and comfort. One night at her apartment, she asked, "Are you okay?" "I mean, really?" I thought about it and said, "I'm getting there. Some days are better than others." "That's fair," she said. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." It felt different this time. Partnership instead of performance. About half a year after that brunch, I ran into Elena at a supermarket. She had her kids with her. She smiled when she saw me. "How are you?" she asked. We caught up briefly. Her husband had gotten a promotion. The kids were starting a new school year. "I heard things are going well for you too," she said. "I'm glad. Thank you for what you did," I told her. "Changed everything." "I just did what was right," she answered. And honestly, she's not someone I want in my life anyway. Before we said goodbye, she looked at me and said, "You look good," like genuinely happy. And I realized she was right. Later, Leo mentioned he'd heard updates about my ex through mutual acquaintances. She was still living with her parents, working part-time in a shop, had tried dating someone briefly, but it hadn't worked out. She still posted dramatic, self-pitying stories online, but fewer people were reacting now. "You don't care at all, do you?" Leo asked. "Not even a little," I said. And it was true. 7 months after that Sunday brunch, I was in my apartment with Anna. We were cooking dinner together, our easy Sunday routine. She was chopping vegetables while I stirred the sauce. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "The brunch?" She nodded. Sometimes, I admitted. Not as much as before. I tasted the sauce, paused, then said, "Honestly, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me." "Why?" she asked. "Because it forced me to stop accepting less than I deserved," I said. "To stop making excuses for someone who didn't respect me. To finally choose myself." Anna smiled and went back to chopping. We ate out on the little patio with the city lights in the distance, talking about everything and nothing. She laughed at something I said, and I realized that this feeling of calm, of being seen and respected, was what it was supposed to feel like. No performance, no hidden agenda, no scoreboard. Just two people building something real. My phone buzzed with a work email about Monday's schedule. "Work stuff?" Anna asked. "Yeah," I said. "Nothing urgent." I set the phone down and came back to the moment. The next day, I'd go to a job I'd earned. I'd come home to a place I'd built for myself. Maybe I'd see Anna, maybe I wouldn't, but either way I'd be okay, because through all of this I'd learned something simple and important. You can't build a future with someone who is secretly planning your exit, you can't love someone into respecting you, and you can't win a game you don't know you're playing. But you can walk away, start over, and build something better, not out of anger or revenge, but out of the quiet certainty that you deserve more. And then you build that better life, one small, steady day at a time. If you stayed with me until the end of the story, thank you for listening. If it made you think about your own boundaries, your own self-respect, don't forget to support the channel with a like. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.